I'm Jeff Cook,
And I'm TJ Wilson.
and this is Around the Circle.
I'm walking slowly, I'm taking my time. All I could talking is starting to rhyme. I'm letting go of lonely, letting go of strife. I just can't get enough of this beautiful life.
The Enneagram is a map of the human personality. It's a tool for navigating relationships, creates language for what motivates us, and helps us look at the way we look at everything else. Most importantly, the Enneagram's a mirror because sometimes you need help seeing yourself. My name is Jeff Cook. I'm a philosopher in Greeley, Colorado. With me is TJ Wilson, businessman, lover of theology, and Enneagram ninja.
Hello.
My man.
Hey.
Hey, last time we talked about dinosaur bones.
We did.
Because we talked about dinosaur bones, this was the only thing on my mind for the last week.
Sure.
And I got in a digging mood.
Okay. I
So
just
I'm-
watched Jurassic Park, so.
Well, I saw myself a pterodactyl femur sticking out of the earth, and I decided to pull out a toothbrush.
You knew it was a femur? From a pterodactyl?
I mean, I'm knowledgeable about some things, TJ. it's like a chicken wing from Kentucky Fried Chicken, only bigger.
Yeah, but how'd you know it was a pterodactyl?
It was a dinosaur bone.
Okay, that's fair, I guess.
Clearly, if it's a chicken and a dinosaur bone, the only possible option is a pterodactyl.
Right.
At least that's what I'm telling myself. We pitched that one of the things that we could think about for like extra credit homework was, what is the underlying feeling of your stress number? And I hope it's the case that some of our more persistent, thoughtful listeners jumped into that. But that's where my mind's been all week. And I think that it's worth recording. Since we're talking about underlying feeling anyway, might as well jump into that.
Yeah, might as well.
I really like this topic because it's one of those, as we were talking off mic, it's one of those topics it's the flashing light on your dashboard.
Yeah.
When was the last time you had a flashing light on your dashboard?
Earlier today, in fact.
What's wrong?
The weather's getting colder, and I need to put some air in my tires.
Happened to Beckett's car.
Yeah.
It freaked him out.
Sure, yeah.
I got low tire pressure. How does this work?
Yeah. You just put air in the tires. Because it's getting colder. Yeah, my partner definitely freaked her out. And I was like, nah, it's just getting colder. It's fine. My sixth partner definitely thought the car was going to explode. But
there's a difference between like your car is starting to wobble a little bit. You're not feeling quite as comfortable going around corners for some reason. It's like there's just something wrong with the car and you feel it.
yeah.
But when you get actual information from your car saying, hey, knucklehead, it's October. Put air in your tires.
Right. Well, and like you get the indicator and then you ignore the indicator for 6 months and then the car starts wobbling.
I believe you forgot to preface, if you're a 9, you.
Hey, we are not the only ones who do this.
Or perhaps some of us go, oh, okay, I'm going to put air in my tires because this will
Sure,
take 2
yeah.
minutes.
Yeah. And some of us wait a week and a half past the indication
One of the
because,
One of the best purchases I've ever made was a tire inflator.
yeah.
It's you plug it into the cigarette lighter,
Uh-huh.
and it's got a little pump up your tires.
I in fact have one that is battery powered.
Come on.
Like it just
And it
uses
still
like
takes you
a
6
tool
months?
Man, because I have to like actually go outside and do it. I know it's only going to take like 6 minutes, but I have to remember and then go get the thing and then go do it. It's an ordeal.
See, I just want to pick on 9s again. I get that.
Yeah.
I actually have many a place. If anyone were to look at my office and say, Jeff, are you going to take the trash out at some point?
Sure.
Ever?
Yeah. I take my trash out pretty regularly. It's all the other crap that's a problem.
When was the last time you ate an apple? Because that core is looking pretty gnarly. So dinosaur bones, right?
Yeah, right. Yes. Dinosaur bones. And
Blinking
red
lights.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about the blinking lights. It seems to me the blinking light says this is the problem, and now I'm aware of it, and I have a name for it, and I can control it. If I can name something, I can control it. This is a law of human experience.
Right.
Thing about our underlying feelings is they are so intense at times that we forget to name them.
Mm-hmm.
I was driving yesterday and these two guys pull into my lane, like a foot or two into my lane, just being oblivious. But I think they're being a jerk. And I had this like surge of rage. Like, you're jumping in my lane. This is my lane. I don't know why I think it's my lane. I don't own the lane, but they are in my lane. And after I determined that everything was safe, I decided to hit the gas, pull up next to them, stare them down. My very calm, thoughtful, wise, youngest child, who's a 5, said, Dad, no reason to do that.
Yeah. And what is that going to accomplish?
Nothing. My 5 realizes that when I get angry, things go badly, and
sure.
is immediately aware anger is taking place in my father. I should probably bring this up, which they did, and it was incredibly helpful. And I said, you know what this is? I'm being an idiot, but I didn't recognize my anger.
Sure. Yeah.
I allowed anger to just control my action.
Yep. And then we're not in the driver's seat anymore, even if we are physically in the driver's seat.
and that's the thing.
Yeah.
Just naming, I am entering that space that I call anger, can be real helpful, because otherwise I'm like, this is my authentic self coming out and nobody's going to push me around. I'm going to do what I want. And then bad things happen.
Right. Because none of that's real. So
that's correct. That happens in my center with anger. You want to talk about ones?
Great. I think that's a great place to
Ones
start.
are incredibly interesting. This is how things work in my life as a 1, and we will talk about all the types through this prism. The thing about stress is that when things go very badly, I start using my stress tools. And I don't feel angry anymore in my stress number. And one of the ways that I can test, that I can understand that, the light on my dashboard that's blinking, that goes off, it's not anger that I experience, it's shame. Because as a 1, I go to 4 in stress, and in 4, the underlying feeling is shame. And it's a very potent feeling. I'm very aware of it. Oftentimes, the inner critic that has been associated with anger at myself, the inner critic puts on an entirely new outfit in 4 space.
Yeah.
And it's much more shame past, directed.
Right.
Elevating.
But also in particular, it's because shame is a relational quality. It's also relationally filtered.
That's an excellent observation. I think, and that's exactly right. I don't get shamed about, I don't feel a lot of shame at what I didn't accomplish.
Right.
The places that in my past memory that I feel shame, it's about things I said to other people that I shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Ways I treated people, ways that conversations went that were really awful. That's exactly it. It's much more relational.
Yep.
That is the dinosaur bone that's worth uncovering for all the types.
That we experience our stress numbers underlying feeling.
Yep.
To a higher degree.
And we should name it.
Yep.
And there's a couple things that happen when you name the underlying feeling of your stress number. 1, you can say, I'm in stress right now. And just that really matters.
Yep.
As TJ and I have said many times, your stress number isn't bad. It's a tool. But if you don't know, like a flamethrower is a tool, Yeah, in theory. What else? What's a really destructive? A chainsaw is a tool. You could do a lot of damage to yourself if you don't know how to use a chainsaw, though.
That's true. Yeah.
It would be something like that. There is something about I need to, in this moment, I'm in that space where I'm in stress, and I need to use the tools to get to the high side of stress so that I can navigate these waters in a way that doesn't do damage to myself, to other people, etc.
Yep. And even just the fact of recognizing it, that just knowing that the way for ones, the way that you are currently beating yourself up and feeling like you are fundamentally flawed in this place is actually you being in stress. It's not that you were fundamentally flawed.
Right. Correct.
Well, maybe not necessarily that you're fundamentally flawed. I don't know.
I'm a pretty toxic person, to be honest with you.
It happens.
Trying to dig out that bit. A handful of things I want to talk about this. And I think this is just super useful. I may have said this already, but I'm a little feisty today. I'm going to get very prescriptive because I'm just in that kind of mood.
Sure.
And part of it is that I despise being in stress so much. Like, I can deal with anger all day long.
Mm-hmm.
I have a really tough time living in shame and fear.
Yeah.
These are very uncomfortable spaces for me.
And I think this is this is a great place for us to start going around the circle, because I think that like pointing at the fact that you are so uncomfortable has to do with your type.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just that you, Jeff, are really uncomfortable being in stress. It's that one's experiencing the kind of shame that comes with the move to stress. It is an extremely uncomfortable place to be.
Do you not? So I'll jump to the end real quick, but TJ's a 9. 9's moved to 6 in stress, and the underlying feeling of 6 is fear.
Mm-hmm.
Is fear an uncomfortable spot for you?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, there you go.
And that's what I mean. Like we can see this. I think that it's very pronounced in ones because of the way that it sort of turns it in on itself.
Mm-hmm.
And just like makes some of the hard things about being a 1 a little bit harder.
Sure.
So yeah, I think this is going to be true for almost all the types, but in particular, seeing it in ones, it's a lot easier to point to.
Right. There, and that's it. Ones don't want to be corrupted or spoiled. And when I move into stress and feel shame, that is an intruder that needs to be kicked out.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, about the past, I can't correct the past for the most part.
Right.
Some ones actually, let me back up. Some ones, you'll know this, will be overly apologetic when they screw up. And I bet, and in part, it's going to be about this.
Yeah.
They messed up yesterday, and all of a sudden they have this surge of shame, and they need to get the shame out.
Right.
Knock on the person's door. I really messed this up. I need to tell you 12 ways that I messed this up so that I can purge it from myself so I don't experience the shame that's in the past anymore.
And this is the way to make myself good in the face of not being good in the first place.
Yeah. Or even
This is the right thing to do.
The desire to get even keel is, I suppose, where I would put it. It's like I just need to get back to a place where I'm feeling comfortable again in my body, and this is how I'm going to do it. I need to apologize to Joe, Sally, and Ed, and when that happens, then that's in the past. I can move back to the present, and that's the move. I'm getting out of the past. I'm moving into the present. We're going to talk quite a bit about that. In fact, that move of moving out of your stress number back into center, I think is important.
Yep.
One thing that's real important, however, is to say again that your stress number is not bad.
Right.
Your stress number is a tool.
Yeah, I think that we've been saying this, that just recognizing that you're in stress is something that is good. Just being able to see it and know that this is like you are not balanced right now. You are not in a great place. You are not feeling centered. You're experiencing something that is causing you to move and pick up other behaviors. And while it may be the case that that is to keep you alive. Like your stress type is part of how we stay alive, how we protect ourselves. But it also may be the case that there's something there that you need to be able to grab to get back to center. And when ones are experiencing that kind of stress, it is the case that shame will be part of that sense, part of that feeling, part of the way they experience that shame. But it's also true that there's some level of introspection that needs to happen in order to bring the one back to center.
That's a great way to think about your stress number. Your stress number is a tool to do some work. It's not a place to live.
Right.
It's the tool by which you get back to a healthy center. Because if you were already in a healthy center, you wouldn't have moved into stress. You wouldn't have started using other tools.
Right.
But the tool is there to rebuild the platform by which you can jump back to center. Jumping to center, engaging your center, really important. And I feel like, I don't know if we're on an island here, but it's just worth, in terms of theory, it's just worth naming, it seems to me. There are some folks who want to say that your Enneagram type is the problem, that somehow you had broken things in your past, in your childhood, throughout your life. Your personality develops, and your personality is your Enneagram type, and therefore your type, you're a 5, and this is the problem, is your 5-ness. That's a prescription. Mm-hmm. I tend to say this is a terrible prescription to say your 5-ness is the problem. Because I want to say your 5-ness is where you need to land, embrace, and really ask the question, what does it look like to be to go to the high side of your 5? What's it look like to be a healthy, thriving, happy 5?
Yeah.
That's the target. Balanced 5, as we've said.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's not that we're trying to, I mean, there is some degree of the parts of your personality that are tied to your 5-ness or your 1-ness or for me 9-ness that are a problem. But part of becoming a better, wholer person is to not let those things be in the driver's seat anymore. Yeah. We're not getting out of the 9 car. I'm just not ever going to get out of the 9 car. That's the car that I have. But I don't have to let my personality drive.
The problem in my mind is the low side of my type. Mm-hmm. And I associate my type with the low side of my type sometimes.
Yeah.
And I say, well, my entire type is clearly dysfunctional. That's not a good move.
Correct.
That strikes me as self-abusive.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for those of us who actually get an Enneagram, if you start like abusing your type, I don't think that's healthy at all. Yeah. And I would really jump out on that limb and say there's a point at which some Enneagram teachers are being abusive to themselves, and you really shouldn't go down that road. The question is, what does it look like for you to be healthy, virtuous, thriving, balanced in your type? Because the world needs great 1s. The world needs great 9s.
Yep.
So let's talk about 1s with that in mind. You move 1s. You move into stress. One of the things you begin to experience is the underlying feeling of your stress number, which is shame. Note, it's a past-oriented emotion, and it's very relational.
Yep.
This is the flashing light on your dashboard that you are in stress. Mm-hmm. Stress isn't a bad thing. It's not a good thing, but you need to know it.
Yeah, I think that, like, for some of us, it's like we see, a low tire pressure light come on, and we say, I'll fix that someday. And then 6 months later, we're, not able to make turns the way we're supposed to because one of our tires is super low, and we're on the highway and the tire blows out because we've ignored this problem for so long. And realistically, like, when you see that flashing light, this is a time to take stock and look around and figure out what you're doing there, why you're there, maybe how to get back home, like what things need to be fixed in order to make that flashing light go away. Mm-hmm. And what part, like, when 1s are in that place where they're experiencing that relational anxiety, when they're looking at things that have happened last Tuesday, 6 months ago, whatever, where they're like really, really hard on themselves about some way that they messed up a relationship or said something wrong to another person or what it like when that is the way that their mind is thinking, then ones need to take stock and look at what's happening in their life that's causing this stress, what's going on around them that's pulling them out of balance.
We had set it off, Mike, and I had forgotten to set it up, but it's important is alongside the underlying feeling is also going to come the passion of your stress number.
Yeah.
And another thing that ones may experience is severe envy in a dark way.
Yep.
Not only are those the flashing lights, but that is just going to be your experience. So, thing that goes through my mind in terms of like repair, or you are in your stress number and it's a tool. So how do you use the tool? Ones. Fours feel their thoughts. That's how they are in the world. And you should use that tool. You're thinking repressed anyway. You need to start getting emotional, relationally emotional about your thinking.
Yeah.
And this actually can be quite helpful. Pushing into fours equanimity at the high side, very helpful. Seeing that everything has a place, seeing that all the relationships and everything you've done, all the ways that your story has played out up until this moment, it all has a place and it's all beautiful. Just own it. Just own it.
And regardless of if, like, you may not be able to get to the place where, quote unquote, it's beautiful, but what you can do is accept that it's yours.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. These are the things that have got you to where you are now, and there is no other version of you.
That's it. Alongside this, and for those of you who aren't, into God and the rest, forgive me for a second, but this is one of those places where when we talk about the heart's message, or when Enneagram teachers talk about the heart's message, it's very important to find this in some sort of source.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times people, unfortunately, will let you down and they can't communicate these things. And that's why at the end of the day, I think it's much more helpful to go towards God or towards your source for this. The heart's message for fours is you are seen. In my tradition, the living God sees everything. Living God is all-knowing. Living God not only sees, but has an emotional experience of everything that's seen. And the living God has seen your story and actually sees it in exactly the way that TJ communicated it. It's there are high, there's places where you're thriving. There's places where, you're in front of a toilet throwing up and it's fairly ugly. And that's all these things have their place in getting you to where you presently are. And that can be celebrated. And that can be, you can be affirmed in that space, even when you're just thoroughly stressed out. But getting your emotions around thinking about this and thinking about the fact that you are seen in this space, for me, can be incredibly helpful. Somebody understands.
Yeah.
And knows all things and is cheering for me. And getting emotional about that is very valuable for me.
Yeah. And I think figuring out ways that you can embrace and spend time with those emotions, like it's really easy, because ones are typically reacting to their emotions and then they think about it later, if ever.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of being in stress is recognizing that you're not solving the problem anymore. And I think part of being healthy, grabbing the good things when you find yourself in that place, is not to rush to try and solve it, but to be in the feelings and try to recognize what you're actually feeling. Try to think about, try to engage your feeling center in a way that helps move you back to, as opposed to trying to spin your wheels, just trying to force it. Yeah, there's obviously always something to do, but sometimes there's not. And sometimes it's actually better not to solve the problem, but to figure out how you actually feel about the problem.
Fours are going to have an internal reference point, whereas ones are going to have an external reference point. Ones are moving outward. Fours withdraw, as we've said. The stance is withdrawn. I have a huge difficulty, unless I'm just exhausted, moving into withdrawn space, because I start judging myself. I'm clearly not doing enough. I'm withdrawn.
No, that's not. No.
But part of going into force space, the tool is, here's how the tool works. You're shutting down your action center. You're shutting down your body when you go to force space.
Yep.
If your body in action was doing the job, you wouldn't be stressed out. That's why you're withdrawing.
Right.
And so since you're here, I love the image that TJ just pitched. Since you're there, why don't you go ahead and sip that for a while and get the nutrition you need, and find out and just find out the things that are beneficial to you in that space.
Yeah.
One of the most, to piggyback on that though, there is a time where you get the nutrition. You do the journaling. This would be very helpful in stress. Just create a journal, write it all down, throw away 90%, keep the 10% that's gold that really speaks to your heart. Look at it every morning and just remind yourself, this is who I am and this is what I'm about.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's time, name it and say, it's time to get into my body. And when you do that, you're moving back into one space and you're getting centered. And that's where you're made to live.
And that also helps you figure out what's yours to do.
Yeah.
Because it's often the case that ones find themselves in stress in part because they don't know what's theirs.
Yep.
They think they have to fix the world.
Spastic thinking.
Yeah. And when you come back from force space, you recognize that you have a place in the world and the rest of the world isn't your place.
Yeah. That's a great point. Yeah. At least for me. The lack of clarity that I experience when I'm centered is profound.
Mm-hmm.
I can move very easily into 7 space, and then there's 20,000 things I could possibly do.
Sure, yeah.
And I even sometimes lie to myself and say 7 space is where I'm supposed to live. This is one of the
really not
incredibly helpful things with force space.
Yeah.
Being able to see your unique colors, your unique contribution, your unique vocation.
Yeah.
And here is where my energy ought to move and be targeted. Otherwise, a lot of ones can get real unhealthy and just are very, they are very reactive.
Mm-hmm.
Things just don't feel like they're going well. Must be my fault. I'm gonna throw my energy in 28 different ways. And that's a terrible place to live as a 1.
Right.
Bang. Engage your center. Get in, find out who you are. Begin to act on it. Shoot for the high side of your center. This is good living. Last words on 1s?
I don't think I have anything to add.
That's going to be the prototype. I think all the rest of the types are going to flow very fast as we're talking, because that's the prism through which you can see yourself and all the other things. So Notice how it works for 2s. 2s are a reactive type. 2s, when moving to stress, they move into 8 space. 2s will shut down their emotions, their relational center, and they're moving into 8 space. And for those of us who know 8s, we know that 8s are feeling repressed. Mm-hmm. This is the thing. 2s moving into 8 space are shutting down their feelings, grabbing hold of 8 tools. What does the blinking light look like for 2s?
Yeah, so 2s who typically encounter a fair amount, like shame is the thing that goes with 2s. Shame and relational anxiety, struggling with knowing where my place is and needing to make sure that the people have got my back and that I'm connected. Moving into stress, 2s finding themselves in stress, start experiencing the way that anger moves outward with 8s. Mm-hmm. And like a lot of 2s have reported that stress is the place where they get called the B word. Mm-hmm. And like this is when 2s who are typically affable and like a lot of 2s are somewhat Okay, controlling is the wrong word, but it gets us in the ballpark. Forgive me, twos. But a lot of twos are sort of aggressive about their help and the like they're naturally reactive people, but they don't have a problem sort of inserting themselves if they think that they have a job to do. But when they move into this place of stress, when they start to actually get the real aggressiveness of eights and the actual anger that comes along with that move, it becomes a lot more volatile than twos typically are. It becomes a lot more sort of incendiary and like anger as a way to move mountains and like people typically experience the anger of twos as much more like martyrdom. And when they get the stressed out version of twos, people experience a different kind of anger, and twos feel that anger in a different kind of way. It is much more self-centered. It's sort of big in its capacity to try and control the world, and less about what does someone else need from me. Much more about what are people doing that I don't like?
I suppose I tell myself a story here that the two's been putting their external energy out for everybody's sake.
Mm-hmm.
And then they feel injured, like, or unwanted, or like people aren't giving them the return care that they've been asking for. And something hits, and it's suddenly they feel kind of vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And that vulnerability emerges. They get kind of aware of themselves, and then they get angry about it.
Yeah.
And the anger actually is pushing outward towards folks who didn't care for them.
Yeah.
And the image of like there's only for those of us who just give and give and give and give and give and give, there often is a point where you hit the wall and you say, nobody's been helping me.
Yeah.
Or even I get hit when doing that, and suddenly become a little bit more self-protective. And I need to step away from all that. And I can't care about you right now. Is I suppose how I read that.
Sure.
I don't have an image coming to my head here, so I may be off. But the independent side of eightness would emerge, correct?
Yes, but I don't think in a withdrawn kind of way.
Correct. It's
in
an
a
aggressive
controlling kind of way.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm going to take care of myself now. It's that all you are going to do what I want now.
It's a better way to put it. That's good. That is, theoretically, that is going to be tinged with anger, but it's going to be tinged with vengeance as well. Yeah.
Oh, certainly. I mean, it's like twos don't find themselves in that stress place, especially not the unhealthy side, without there being a reason that they need to sort of get even, to stake their place, to plant their flag and say, nope, this is mine now, and we're going to do it my way because you didn't do it the way I wanted.
That's a good way to put it. That's what I've seen. I have seen twos who enter that space, the eight space, and then they relationally undercut some people.
Yeah.
Like, okay, now that we're over here on the side, I'm going to use gossip to just kneecap, that person over there.
Sure.
Who did me wrong.
Yeah.
I was giving my best to that person. It didn't go well. And now we're stepping to the side, and I'm aware of this on the side. I'm and I think the relational, I'm shutting down my heart and kind of takes place in that space.
Sure.
Am I wrong there? I suppose I'm thinking of just a handful of experiences on this front
Yeah.
with twos.
I'm not sure that I've seen that I would agree with like the pulling to the side aspect.
Okay.
It may not be the case that the twos are going to be the one to tell the person that they're struggling with to get out, but they might manipulate someone else to get them to like the gossip will come in and say, look at what so and so did. You should probably fire them.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Is it's on the negative side.
Mhm.
That's how the vengeance materializes. It
Yeah.
materializes. The vengeance is very relational
Yes.
for the two.
Yeah.
Whereas I can see all sorts of 8s. The vengeance can be very physical.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, because everything is still through our primary center. Like the way that 2s relate to the world is relational. And even if they pick up tools at 8, they're still relational beings in their nature.
Right.
And so the things that they pick up there may have to do, and this is true for all the way around the circle. When ones pick up some of the 4 stuff, it's still not about like it's a relational filter, but it's still about themselves and their control and their particular place in the world. When 2s move to 8 and pick up that stress, it picks up a more sort of physical, gut level, intuitional filter, but it's still relational at its core.
Gonna intuit your thinking about the relationships.
Yeah.
That strikes me as right. I'm again, when I've and you will be able to speak to this better because you have a parent who's a 2, but it just strikes me that there's a few places where I've seen 2s snap, and it feels like that, where it's like the high relational IQ goes low, and I'm gonna pull out a golf club and hit that guy in the knee.
Yeah. And all of a sudden we realize that not only are they starting a fight, but they encouraged all of us to bring our knives, and they brought a gun.
Yeah. I didn't realize she had a gun.
Yeah.
You were
or in my 2's case, a crossbow. My mother, for context, my mother would not allow me to have a BB gun when I was young, because guns are bad. But when she died, I had to figure out what to do with her crossbow.
It's a zombie apocalypse coming, TJ. You gotta get informed by the not Breaking Bad, by the Walking
Dead, which she loved.
I mean, that's why she's got a crossbow. Heart's message for the 8 is you will not be betrayed. And here's the thing is you are so relationally geared, and that person did hurt you, and you go into 8 space and you do want to get vengeance, and there is a different option. And the option is that God is on your side and will never, ever, 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 ever hurt you in that way. And you need to pull from that hard, aggressively, just like an 8 would. You get lustful about it in some sense. I mean, that's the positive sense of the intensity of experience available for 2s in stress in terms of their spiritual life is there.
Well, I also think there's a really interesting thing here. We never really talk about this, but the heart's message for the 8 is an active receiving. It doesn't really have anything to do with the other person.
Yeah, talk about that.
It's like you will not be betrayed is different from this person will not betray you.
Oh, see, all right. So go ahead.
So 2s who naturally sort of like shut down their own inner workings and desires and feelings and like put all of that stuff on the side in order to help and serve other people. When they get into this place where things are not going well and they are experiencing something that pulls them out of their center and moves them into stress, all of the vengeance and the anger and all of the stuff that we've talked about, but one of the things that they do get there, especially if they can figure out how to embrace that heart's message, is that you will not be betrayed. Not that you have this place in this thing and the community is safe. It's not that like this person is going to, like, it's not about the other people. It's about the self. And that's a big part of what 2s need in that 8 space is connecting with themselves and recognizing that they have power and agency, and it's okay to have desires, and to let that stuff out and know that the people around them, that the people, the beings that are worthwhile want the whole self to come forward.
I think that's a great interpretation of that. There is a traditional list out there. The only one that's put in, I believe that's the first person, is the message for 8s. I will not betray you, is how I've always read it from others. And it's the only one that's addressed in that way. Because everything else is you are seen, you are good, you are, it's these you are statements. You get to 8s, I will not, there's a personality here apparently. So I like your take on this because it's consistent with the rest of the list.
Mm-hmm.
When I jump to, we need to get something from our source, the personality comes in, and especially for 2s, like the relational connection to, the divine can be incredibly helpful here.
Right.
Like you just need power.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're looking for. You need some power and grounding and foundation because you've been giving it all, and you need something that's massive to step into that space and say, here's the thing, I'm on your side.
Yeah. And as it turns out, that power comes from inside you, not from your connection to other people.
Right. It can't come from other people.
Exactly.
I think, and this might be, so I'm a philosopher of religion. That's like actually my training, but I just want to respect the hell out of those who come from a non-theistic tradition on this. It can be the case that you can tell yourself that message. Like that may be all that's there. If you don't have a God, where else are you going to go? You're gonna have to find that in yourself.
Yeah.
For those of us who have a belief in God, it just is. It's easier. I mean, it just is to just make the move and say, "Look, the voice that created the sun is cheering for you right now, and will never do you wrong."
Right.
And you need to pull from that. That I don't know. That's how I read that.
And the move back to center then becomes really natural, because if you are capable of all of those things, if you have that power within you, then in fact you are worthwhile. You are worthy of being part of the relationships that you're looking for.
Yeah. If you're, I mean, for me, if you can get there, you're a better person than I am. Unfortunately, I have to.
It's a lifelong work, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is just one of those places. It's a fork in the road. You got to take one. I warned everybody ahead of time. I'm just going to be prescriptive. I love the hell out of believing in God because of this. Yeah. Love the hell out of believing in God because when I get to these spots, there is just nothing there. I'm going to be scraping some concrete trying to pull, the like, if I can say I am seen while pulling something into myself, I just can't get there. So that's me.
Yep. I understand. I can also understand the other side.
That's what I'm saying. I was like, man, just love the hell out of you atheists. You guys are like, nobody I'd rather talk to. I have no idea how you do it. Like it's not terrifying. It is. I don't know how you do it.
I would love to have this conversation with you and potentially another, like someone who is actually atheistic.
Yeah.
But that's not what our podcast is about.
Correct. So, but I mean, it's that's what I'm saying is, at this level, I'm naming the fork. This is where things fork when you get to Heart's message. It is so core. It is bedrock core, and this is just how the movement has to happen at that level. Because when I read, I mean, there's a handful of fantastic, more Buddhist. It comes across more Buddhist to me, Enneagram teachers. Who will not pull from the divine, as it were.
Sure.
And their phrasing of the heart's message ends up having much more of a Buddhist mystical way of grounding themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Cheer for that all day long. If that's where intellectually, if that's your metaphysical view of the cosmos, may all good things be yours. But you got to name it at that level, because it's very, very different from saying, look, the creator of the universe speaks over you. Because
Sure.
if you don't believe in that creator of the universe, you can't get there.
Right.
Anyway. All right. Thank you for letting me do my side note. That only took 4 minutes. Threes.
Threes.
Oh, by the way, with twos.
Yeah.
Once you get grounded, once you receive from your 8 space, engage your relational heart again. Because now you have that power that you grabbed hold of it in 8 space.
Yep.
You can move back to center with some authority,
Mm-hmm.
with some self-confidence, with some
And with some absolutely unequivocally necessary boundaries.
yeah,
Because
found
some
those.
of the people that have been taking advantage of you need to be told to hit the bricks.
Mm-hmm. It's an excellent word. That's what you should grab hold of in
Yep.
8 space.
They're yeah. Sometimes the people that the relationships that you're stressing about are relationships that should be severed. And that's okay. And you get that from 8 space. You get the strength and the will and the anger, whatever's necessary there to help get you to a place where you are putting energy into things that are worthwhile and yours to do, and not letting other people take that from you.
What is mine to do is a question for reactive types. 1s, 2s, and 6s need to ask this because your thinking is repressed and get you grounded and centered. This is exactly right. In terms of 8 space,
Mm-hmm.
8 space is going to tell you these people are knuckleheads. You don't need to care about them.
Yep.
You are wasting your best energy on people who, and Jesus talked about it. These are pearls, man. They're going to,
Yep.
you're throwing it before swine. Don't do that. 3s. So the 3s are going to move to 9 space. What you going to grab in 9 space for the 3?
So the things that us 9s have to offer 3s who live in the center of that heart triad and view the world relationally and who do I need to become in order for other people to think I'm great and experience everything with that sort of shame filter, but also I think are sort of like pushing it away. Like it's less about letting shame rule and more about doing everything they can to avoid and ignore shame in a sort of aggressive way. They come into 9 space in stress, and there's a withdrawal move. There's a coming into like a more physical presence move, but there's also a sense of like the way that 3s are disconnected from their shame. Now they start to feel a kind of anger and a weird sort of disassociation with it as well, because anger is the thing that they get at 9s. And I think that a lot of times this will be the I'm going to take my ball and go home move for 3s. Instead of trying to impress and adapt and get things done and achieve, they say, fine, I'm just going to go do it. I'm just going to go do something else. Or fine, I'm just going to quit this thing. And there's a level of anger that comes with that. If you've ever 3s, if you've ever angrily given up on anything, particularly relationships or because of a relationship, that was probably you moving into 9 space.
Paired with that is the passion of sloth.
Yeah.
There can be as you're talking, the detachment can be a healthy thing for 3s. Detaching from dysfunctional relationships, from dysfunctional jobs, from dysfunctional people. Sometimes that feeling of anger is the tool. You are using your stress tool in those moments. As you're detaching, you're perhaps rightly getting angry.
Mm-hmm.
It is worth noting that when anger emerges, you're in your stress number, and that's the thing you gotta You got a name. And
Right.
especially if you sever all the things and say, I don't care anymore about any
Mhm.
of you
Yeah.
or anything, that's the voice of sloth.
Yeah. And it's not that like everyone experiences anger, most people experience some level of shame, and everyone experiences most people experience some level of fear. The true thing about the way that threes experience anger when they move into this stress place is it's paired with some level of detachment and of giving up of, and it may not be bad that you're doing that, but it is still present that there is something about your anger that's moving you away from the thing that you're engaging. Because in normal space, when threes feel anger about something, they just solve the problem or attempt to solve the problem. When stress comes in, when stress actually pulls threes away from center into that 9 space, there's a level of backing away.
A lot of people talk about ones wanting to hide their anger.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that. I live with a 3, and I'm like going through all my memories and saying, when is she angry? She is absolutely hiding her anger. And
Yeah.
I know it's there in
Yeah.
theory. And that's just interesting to me as we're talking about this.
Yeah, when the anger is a motivating force to solve problems, it's just different. When the anger is a motivating force to back away from problems, that's a stress move.
Yeah, there you go. And it may not be named. So 3s
Right.
out there may know it, but those of us who love 3s, it may be a little bit hidden.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the low side is going to look like I don't care about any of you.
Right.
And it's going to have a severe detachment element. I am sure.
Yeah. And like coming into this idea that like when 9s live with this sort of thing that our presence doesn't matter, and when 3s that is not the way that 3s feel. And so if they
Correct.
ever encounter a space where there's this sort of like discontented, I guess what I do here doesn't matter, like that's stress for the 3. That is a stress move for the 3 because that is not how 3s feel normally.
What I hear there is like the 3 that is aching often for other people to acknowledge how amazing they are. In stress, if you authentically hear that your presence matters, that's some bedrock. Like that's actually a message that has some potency.
Mm-hmm.
You don't necessarily get that at center as a 3. That's something you're fighting for.
Sure.
You know, like you gotta win. You gotta win for people to give you the attention. But if you're in 9 space and from your source hearing your presence matters, that's bigger, I suppose, as I'm conceiving of that. I mean, that's high side. That's getting away from sloth, pushing into identity. It's such a great thing for 3s to jump off stage sometimes and really withdraw and get internal.
Yeah.
You know.
And like it's not the same thing as 1s and 2s that like they have to figure out what's theirs, but it's often the case that the 3s are putting their energy into too much. And sometimes pulling away from things and finding out that, oh, your absence actually didn't change this thing over here means that you could probably stop spending energy on that thing. It's not just that it's not just that your presence doesn't matter in that space. It's that you are working too hard in that space.
Yeah, for the results you're getting.
Yeah.
Because the 3, it's not so much about the accomplishment for the 3, correct? It's about in the midst of accomplishing that the recognition
Right.
comes.
Yeah, it's the appearance of success. It's the appearance of praiseworthiness. It's not letting anyone ever see you fail. And often threes will take on way too much because if I say no to anything, then I'm a failure.
Was watching Men in Black this morning.
Uh-huh.
There's a scene with Will Smith and in which they go into a pawn shop. It's with Chalhoub.
Yeah.
And Tommy Lee Jones. Tommy Lee Jones shoots an alien in the face for trafficking alien firearms.
Right.
And as they're leaving, Will Smith says, "And I'm going to come back soon and see about them, Rolexes, that were apparently black market." And inserting himself into this world where just he is completely outgunned, outmatched. Like there's no reason why he matters.
This is a criminal that he has encountered before as a police officer.
Yes.
And he just learned that not only is he a criminal that deals in stolen watches, but he is also an alien criminal who can regrow his head and deals in stolen weapons, which he had never known before in his many interactions with this man as a police officer. And so at the end of learning that I actually had no idea what was going on here, he needs to assert his authority, and I'm going to come back and we're going to talk about those watches.
Yeah. The point being is it's not about accomplishing the job at that point in time.
Correct.
It's about being important in this situation.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
It's like at that point in time, you don't matter at all. You just don't. And still, it's like the best line in that scene is him, "I'm going to come back and see you about those Rolexes."
Yeah.
Anyway, this is what goes through my mind and heart here in terms of the move from the 3 into 9 space. If you go high and can get the heart's message, your presence matters. That 3s want authenticity.
Right.
This is something I think a lot of us don't know about 3s in terms of like 3s can struggle with the deceptive side. 3s I don't think want to be deceptive. They want people to actually value what's actually there.
Right.
And they get that at the high side of 9.
Yeah. And like the thing that you are uniquely capable of doing is needed in this space, and that's very much a 9 kind of thing, and 3s are so good at adapting to whatever's in front of them, so they can be good at this thing and also be good at this thing and also be good at this thing and also be good at this thing, and at some point your hands are in too many pies.
Yep. One other thing, and dear listener, we're going to spend all of November on this material, but we had a fantastic conversation with the great Joey Shuey. She wants to talk about how stance should be thought of with external reference points for reactive types, independent reference points for aggressive types, and internal reference points for withdrawn types. Feel free to rewind that 12 times. But here's the thing. 9s are internally referenced. It can be incredibly helpful for 3s to become internally referenced.
To pick up that quality for a minute.
To grab that tool. That tool is there. Take a minute, take a look at your insides.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah.
Shut the door for a bit. Create your little space. You need a hobbit hole just like everybody else.
It is entirely possible that you have said yes to too many things and now you're stressed out. And one of the great things that you can pick up in the disassociative anger and the sloth and the internal comfort of 9s is that some of those things you don't actually want to be doing, and you don't have to.
Yeah, it's at that moment you don't have to is coming out of who are you?
Yeah.
Like you got to look at yourself for 12 seconds. I mean, or take a day. You haven't been paying attention to looking at yourself. You've been looking at other people to give you a mirror of yourself as opposed to looking at yourself with your own eyes.
Yeah.
But you can get that in 9 space.
Yep.
Bang. Your presence matters. That allows you, once you know your presence matters, it allows you to engage your center, move
Yeah.
back into heart space.
Yeah.
That's a place of balance.
And instead of trying to be really good at a bunch of things, you can just be really great at the things you need to be doing.
Because you already know that your presence matters.
Yep.
That is some, high level octane fuel for a 3, I imagine. If you can, if you already know your presence matters and then you engage the world out there, like that just screams confidence to me.
Sure.
Not that 3s need a whole lot more confidence, but sometimes 3s can be incredibly insecure. They just don't let everybody else know it. But
Sure. Yeah.
when you actually have authentic confidence, woo,
Yeah. It's a different kind of ball game.
go time. 4s.
4s.
4s are going to move to 2. This is going to, TJ mentioned this off mic. This is going to be an interesting move because 4s moving into 2 space move from shame in 4 space into shame in 2 space.
Yep.
But it's going to be slightly different. And so the blinking light on the dashboard looks different. How is it different?
Well, in one way, there's one big change, and that's that the shame switches from being a lot more sort of directed inward and starts becoming a lot more sort of directed outward. Like there's just a switch in the direction that it's going. And I think like it's really important to recognize the place of the passion in the move and stress, and we particularly see it in 4s and 5s. So when 4s find themselves in stressful places, not only does the way that shame works switch directions, but also they pick up the other direction of their passion, which moves from envy into pride. And so you see, especially in unhealthy ways, you see 4s who are normally like looking at the world and sort of seeing how they don't fit. Now they move into a place where they are almost requiring that other people validate their position.
Mm-hmm.
Like there becomes this sort of like prideful, sort of shaming, look at all of the things that I've done for you, now you are supposed to be on my side kind of move. And like that, I think that is a way to describe some of the worst things that can be seen in this move. But there can be a real sense of picking up that, like, it doesn't matter if shame is felt internally, because that move in stress is to start to draw other people in to your place so that you feel like you're not alone anymore.
Yep. Yeah, become very much more relational in 2 space.
Yeah.
I suppose that corresponds with the heart's message. If you go high side in 2 space, if you're a 4 moving into 2 space, the heart's message for 2s is that you're wanted, and that's a very relational place to be.
And it also it solves some of the problem of like cashing in your tickets, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like I've seen this play out a handful of times where 4s find themselves in deeply stressful places, and now they need the community that they consider they like people that they are friends with to now come to their side against someone else.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, then we aren't actually as good of friends as I thought we were. And in the place where you are worthwhile, you matter, you like people want you around, that gets rid of the transactional nature of that scenario. I want to have you around, but that doesn't require me. Like, I don't have to prove that to you by engaging whatever conflict you're in, or like this isn't about me as the person outside of the 4.
Never thought about 4s being really independent people, but like as you're talking, that's exactly what I say. They're very independent. until things break.
Right.
And when they break, they get relational.
And it's not that they're independent. It's that they are naturally more sort of invested in themselves. In like this can be a really good thing. A lot of us need to learn this lesson from fours, particularly ones. But there's like the way that fours sort of navigate. They need relationships, but there is so much about them that is so internal.
Yeah.
That it doesn't that the world can't even understand what's going on inside. So they always and they naturally see themselves as apart.
Yeah.
As separate from the things that are going on around them. As not like I don't have that thing to make me fit into that group or make my presence in this job normal or like I'm the black sheep of the family. They still need those people, the relationships around them, but they naturally see themselves on the outside of it.
I think that's why I'm saying the independence is there.
Yep.
But in security, they're moving to one space and and can still be quite independent in doing the thing that they're made to do, building some stuff.
Yep.
It's when fours get relational.
Yeah.
When fours get relational, it's gonna be in that two space.
When they move into stress and start pulling people into their circle
Yeah.
in order to have a more united front.
Yes.
Yeah. It's almost like making other people pick sides
Yes.
sometimes.
You want to talk about picking sides? I think that's interesting. I think that's exactly what's going on too.
Yeah, I think
Do you see me is coming out there. There's
and not only do you see me, but have I earned the right to cash in whatever favors I need?
There it is. Yep.
Have I earned the right for you to stick by me no matter what?
Have we mentioned pride? Because that's
what pride. Yeah.
At the negative side, that's what that is. That's excellent. Heart's message for twos is I'm wanted, or you are wanted. And again, you can look to the crew, you can look to the herd to give you that.
Mm-hmm.
But again, if you get that from your source, it's just different in my mind. If you're wanted by the maker of all things, it just is different in my mind. So getting that as a four.
And so much of that stress move is transactional by nature. Like this is part of what fours experience into. This is part of how twos experience their world. Their giving is sort of transactional. They're storing up favors. Sorry, twos. That's just kind of how it works. And the message that you are actually wanted in these relationships says it's not transactional by nature.
Yeah. Both twos and fours need to hear that it's not transactional by nature. You need to know that you're, in terms of coming to God again, like you have a full bank account. That's one of the fantastic things about grace experienced is that you understand that you are an inheritor of all things.
Mm-hmm.
Living in that can be incredibly difficult, but super freeing to being your best self.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what's going on there.
Yeah.
So, but the frantic earning that a four will experience when going to two space, that can just be, that can be a car wreck waiting to happen because it's so difficult as a one. I know what it's like to desperately want to earn and how difficult that world can be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it sets up that dichotomy that if you're not on my side, then you're against me.
Yeah.
And the message that you are wanted is an antidote to that divisiveness.
Yeah.
It's, I can disagree with you in this space. I cannot necessarily back you up in this fight, whatever the thing is. Relationally, we are still connected. That does not require that I side with you.
Yep.
Because I still want you to be around.
Once you got that foundation, you can move back to your center.
Yep.
we were talking to some fours the other day, and it was like, well, how do you get to your center as a 4? Because you're going from the heart to the heart. And what you need to do is, as was said earlier, you need to move from the external relationships to the internal relationships again.
Yeah.
So what does it look like for you to focus on yourself a little bit? And one 4 we were talking to said, you need to find that French film from 1972. You and 12 other people have watched this movie, but it's amazing. Put that sucker on. Remind yourself how beautiful it is.
Yeah, and I even think that reminding yourself that like the space at 2 gives you an opportunity to remind yourself that people like you, and the move back to 4 is that people like you not only despite your flaws, but there are some things about you that literally only 12 other people on the planet experience. And the thing that connects you to those 12 people is not that you've done something to help them. It's that there is something specific about you that connects you to these other people. And that's a good and beautiful thing.
We have yet to mention the great Frank Lloyd Wright. Frank Lloyd Wright is an architect. Watched a handful of documentaries on Frank Lloyd Wright. Strikes me as a 4. I might be wrong on this. The thing about Frank Lloyd Wright is his architecture is very different from all the other things going on in the world at the time. He will take clients and say, I would like to take you over here. And then he'll make something extraordinary for them and pull them into it.
Mm-hmm.
And he is very aware of who he is, what he creates. And that strikes me as an elevated sense of 4-ness when moving back to center. It's something like that. It's like you have the thing that's yours to do, as it were.
Right.
Aware of your self-understanding, the beauty that you bring into the world. Go grab some folks and pull them in to those things over there.
Yeah.
So if you were to look up Frank Lloyd Wright, you would see houses like Falling Water, which is this home out in the middle of nowhere, like Wisconsin. But it's a house that's been built essentially incorporating this river and a small waterfall, and it's large. Many people regard it as the most beautiful house in the country. But it's just him and this client, building this house.
Right.
And yet it shines out with all of this, for everybody else to see is like, man, that's incredible. That strikes me as the target.
Yeah. Well, and I have nothing to say about what type I think Frank Lloyd Wright is because I know nothing about his life. But given the argument, going along with the argument that he might be a 4 for the sake of, just discussion, the thing that he also, that it would probably be, like, he was a phenomenally talented architect, and he very easily could have made a huge name for himself cranking out cookie cutters.
Sure. Right?
Like you get a Frank Lloyd Wright house, you get a Frank Lloyd Wright house, you get a Frank Lloyd Wright house, and all of them are different, even though they're all the same and they're just painted different colors, and some of them are flipped on the x-axis, and like he very easily could have made a huge amount of money doing this in a much bigger kind of way. But what he chose to do in the truest form of himself is recognizing that his best self was being really specific with really specific places.
Yeah. That's exactly it. He's picking his moments.
Yeah.
Best example of this. You can imagine New York City. New York City is filled with rectangles stretching to the heavens.
Yep.
And they're all gray.
Mm-hmm.
And that sucker put a big fat white cylinder in the middle of the city. It's called the Guggenheim. And that's his art museum that he designed. They had to go through so much approval to get this building made because it was so different from everything else. I didn't think that we could do this. It's a big white cylinder. Anyway, getting centered. Makes me laugh.
Yeah.
Well, next time. Well, hey, friends, it would mean the world to us if you share this episode with somebody that you love, preferably a 1 through 4 who just needs something new. It's something worth discussing, I think. As TJ and I have said in the past, just one of the best things you can do if you get into Enneagram is talk about your type with somebody else. Bringing up these topics with others can be incredibly helpful. If you love this material and if it does good for your soul, you can always support us on Patreon. If you don't know where our Patreon is, you can always go to aroundthecircle.org, aroundthecircle.org, and the links to all of our stuff is there. Lots of fun stuff to find there, in fact. Outro music here is by the great Brian Claxton. If you haven't gotten a chance to go on the Spotify and listen to Brian's stuff, Brian's one of the best drummers in the world. Just fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
And especially if you're a 4, he's only got like 7,000 listens, here or there. Incredible musician, though. And as always, if you want to make sure that TJ feels good about himself, you can give us some stars on.
Just shower us with praise and stars. It's the only way I know who I am, really.
Aside from me consistently bringing up my insecurities in terms of stars, you got anything else?
I got nothing.
He's TJ Wilson. He's officially awesome. I'm Jeff Cook. Who you aren't is not interesting, especially if you don't have any stars. God still loves you as you are.
Right? That's the message.
I think that was the message.